I've spent most of my life walking alone. That probably sounds strange to some people, but solitude has always felt familiar to me, comfortable, even. I grew up near the edge of Blackpine Reserve, a stretch of protected woodland in northern Oregon that most locals avoid unless they have a reason. I never needed one. Those woods raised me as much as my parents did. I knew the bends of the trails, the way the ground sloped after rain, which trees caught the wind first in a storm. That's why I didn't hesitate when I saw the sign. The main trail was blocked. An old fir had come down during a storm the week before, roots torn clean out of the earth like a wound that hadn't finished bleeding. The detour marker stood a few yards back, half leaning, its paint faded to the color of old bone. Scenic Loop reopened below it in smaller lettering, closed 1989, 2020, 31 years. I remember smiling when I saw it, not because it felt safe, because it felt earned. Like the woods were finally giving something back to someone who'd paid attention long enough. I told myself it was luck. That was my first mistake. The trail itself wasn't difficult at first. Overgrown, yes, but passable. Leaves lay thick underfoot, damp and heavy, muting every step. Moss clung to stones and fallen logs like the forest was trying to swallow its own bones. The air smelled rich and sweet, layered with decay and growth tangled together. Still something felt off. Not dangerous, not threatening, just old, older than it should have been. The trees pressed in closer than I remembered. The path looked less like something carved by use and more like something the forest had tried and failed to erase. Brambles bent inward as if reclaiming ground slowly, patiently. I checked my phone out of habit. No signal. That wasn't unusual out there, but the GPS dot flickered when it shouldn't have. It hopped a few feet east, then west. Then it jumped backward on the trail. I laughed it off and kept walking. I shouldn't have. A few hours in, the forest changed. Not gradually. Abruptly. The tall oaks and maples thinned out, replaced by trees I didn't recognize. Thick trunks warped into soft-looking ridges, their bark sagging and folding like it had melted and hardened again. Branches bent at angles that made my eyes slide away when I tried to follow them. The light dimmed. It was past noon, but the canopy pressed so tightly overhead that it felt like early evening. Shadows pooled where they shouldn't have. The forest floor darkened without cooling. My phone buzzed once, then went black. I stopped walking then, stood still long enough to notice something else. The forest wasn't quiet, it was blank. No birds, no insects, no distant movement. Sound didn't echo properly. My breathing felt wrong, present in my chest, absent in my ears. That's when I saw the clearing. It appeared all at once. One step I was pushing through undergrowth. The next I was standing at the edge of a perfect circle, 50 yards across, maybe more. The grass inside was short, even unnaturally green. No leaves, no weeds, no signs of animals passing through. It looked trimmed, maintained in the middle of protected wilderness. The edge of it was sharp, too sharp, like a photograph pasted over the forest floor, and at the center of the clearing stood a barn. Red paint, faded but intact, a sagging roof. One sliding door half open. No roads, no fences, no power lines. Just a barn. I felt cold the moment I stepped into the clearing. Not a breeze, not shade. Cold that sank inward, settling behind my ribs. Behind me the forest fell silent again, but differently this time. Not absence, suppression. Like something had turned the volume knob down on the world. My footsteps didn't sound right on the grass. Too soft, too absorbed. As I moved closer, the barn's details began to feel rehearsed. The wood grain ran too straight. The peeling paint curled in identical spirals, repeated over and over like copied mistakes. Rust bloomed in symmetrical patterns along the hinges, as if decay itself had been arranged. It didn't look weathered. It looked designed to look weathered. The smell hit me before the sound, sweet, rotting, chemical, overripe fruit mixed with antiseptic, and underneath it something unmistakable. The sterile, clinging odor of a lab preserved things. Things that shouldn't be preserved. I stopped at the door. That pause saved me. Something moved inside, not clearly, not fully. A dull thump echoed against the interior walls. Then breathing, too deep, too wet. It wasn't steady. The rhythm stretched and collapsed, speeding up, slowing down like whatever made it couldn't remember how breathing was supposed to work. Another thump. Closer. The darkness inside the barn shifted, not like something stepping forward, but like space itself adjusting. As if depth were being rearranged. The breathing multiplied, not louder, layered. Several rhythms overlapping, each slightly wrong, each trying to match the others. Learning, I didn't run, I bolted. The moment I crossed back into the forest, sound came rushing back like a flood. Birds, leaves, wind. Relief hit so hard it almost dropped me to my knees. I kept running. But when I finally stopped and tried to orient myself, everything fell apart. The trees were wrong, younger, straighter, too evenly spaced. Plants I'd never seen before filled the undergrowth, glossy leaves that reflected light like plastic. My compass spun uselessly. My watch froze at 2:47, the second hand twitching back and forth like it couldn't decide which moment to exist in. The forest rearranged itself around me. Dense thickets opened into neat rows like orchards. Heat turned to cold without warning. Time stretched, folded, snapped back. It felt less like being lost and more like being handled, tested. Eventually I saw the hill. The village below it, home. The relief was immediate. Then the world went silent, instantly, like someone had flipped a switch. Footsteps sounded behind me, heavy, deliberate. The rhythm was wrong. Step, step, pause. Step, 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 pause. Like something practicing. I didn't look back. I ran. The footsteps matched me. Too fast. Too close. Wet sounds followed, grunts, almost vocalizations, as if something were trying to speak through fluid-filled lungs. When I broke into the open meadow above town, everything stopped. Sound returned. Life resumed. The forest behind me looked normal, peaceful. Nothing followed, almost nothing. My shadow stretched toward the trees, but there were two of them. One was mine, the other was taller, too close. When I turned, there was nothing there, but the shadow stayed, sometimes beside mine, sometimes merging, sometimes splitting into shapes that didn't make sense. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I learned the trail had been closed after incidents no one would describe. No barn existed in any records. Doctors blamed stress. Medication dulled the edges, but not the footsteps. At night, I hear them in my hallway. Step, step, pause. Breathing follows, too close. Tonight something is standing outside my bedroom door. The knob is turning, the bed shifts. I know what happens next. I know I shouldn't look, but I'm going to. Thank you for listening. If this story followed you longer than expected, then it did its job. New stories are always waiting. In the silence, in the shadows, just out of sight. Until next time, keep your lights low and your doors locked. See you in the next video.